All right, we have pushed the button, Alex, and we are streaming this live to Facebook. And in a moment, I'll copy the link for LinkedIn as well. So hello, everybody. I'm here with Alex Leviton, and this is sight unseen to me, but Alex came to a workshop that I led and was like, hey, I have a session I'm designing, and I want to learn a better relationship with structure and design. And we said, well, let's just do this together. And let's also broadcast it and invite other people to be part of the process. So I know nothing about this session. And then also we're going to put it in Session Lab because, as I understand, Alex has a long and lovely relationship with Post-it notes and is curious about making the transition to having some things digitally recorded. And I can relate to that. So, and there's a few other people in the Zoom meeting. Hello, other people in the Zoom meeting. I am not 100% sure whether your faces are also broadcast on the live stream or not, but right now I have a spotlight. My thought is that I'm going to turn off this bell. I'll ask questions of Alex, and then at some point, Alex, you can turn to the group, like phone a friend, or we may ask questions or bring people in. We'll start just the two of us. All right, so to get this started, actually, why don't you share a little bit about what you have, and I'm going to grab this link so I can share it to LinkedIn too. All right, so okay. Go ahead.
Okay, hello everybody. So yes, Erica's session 1 week ago was amazing. And so I've been teaching this I'm a writer, and I'm so not a performer. I'm not a professional improviser, but I've loved improvisation for what it's taught me as a writer, but I'm not, I love the freedom of not being structured in the workshops that I've given. And I've kind of done this accidentally for the past 17 years now. And now I'm turning it into a career, and I have an LLC. So apparently you're supposed to be kind of structured and a little more professional if you do that. And so Erica's session was amazing. And so I'm here to learn a little bit more structure, as I'm hoping everyone is as well. And I'm giving a talk in a week and a half to journalists that have been reporting on the pandemic and are exhausted. And so it's about kind of creativity, mental health, and resilience for journalists burned out from reporting on the pandemic.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just start building this out live using this program that I use called Session Lab. So I'm going to show you from the very beginning. So when I'm doing something like this, sometimes I will do my thinking in Post-it notes, but I've slowly over time become comfortable doing digital Post-it notes. So we're just going to create a blank session. And you would say, Alex, this is about, do you have a title, working title of this?
Yeah, the title is Creativity, Mental Health, and Resilience.
Okay. Oh boy, live typing, mental health and resilience for journalists. And this is for journalists, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so what this allows you to do is build out your blocks. So in the 5-step framework that I teach, your first order of business when you're working with a group is forming a way for them to be connecting with each other, connect to the topic. They're joining a live call. It's not a TED Talk. It's not a webinar. It's them relating to each other. So we'll fill these out a piece at a time. I'll just lay out the blocks ahead of time. Then a section where in one way or another, you have your participants connect to the goal, their personal goal. Like, why are they here? Why does this matter? What's going to make a difference? It sets your participants up to be on a treasure hunt to make sure that they get value out of your event, which is a great way to have the orientation early on. And then you'll have a big part of your talk or your workshop will be you're going to do things with them that will shift their perspective. And within each of these little blocks, you'll see these little things can drag in and we can spend time on them. And then There'll be time along the way and at the end to integrate the content. And then when you have people leave your call, you want them to leave with some kind of next steps or action items. So that overall, those 5, no matter what we do, no matter whether we spend a minute in each of these blocks, this framework will help people go through a progression of who am I here with? Why am I here? What's important to me? Oh, here's some new information. Great. Oh, let me think about that. Let me relate that to my own work. What's valuable about this? Okay, what am I going to do differently as a result? Because presumably you want people to be thinking, feeling, or doing something different as a result. So that is my first question to you. And I'm just going to make like a 0-minute block up here to just talk about your through line for your presentation. So if this goes really, really well, we don't worry about building it. We're just looking at the end result. What are people going to be thinking, feeling, saying? Like, how are we going to know that this was a successful event? So you just talk about that.
The participants will feel at least 3.3% more creative and less drained after the pandemic.
So that's the big picture that they'll feel. What about just after? How long is your event?
3 hours.
3 hours. Okay, fantastic. What time? We'll go ahead and build these things a little bit. What time does it start?
10 a.m.
Okay.
to 1 p.m.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just go ahead and lock the starting time, and then I'll just add a thing here that's like, this is the end time, and we'll go ahead and lock that by
Cool.
3 o'clock. You said it was 3 hours, so it's starting.
Yeah.
Did I get that wrong? It's starting at noon?
10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Okay, yes. Why am I? Okay, so 1 p.m.
Yeah.
There. And that's the right time. So
That's cool.
All right. And because I made this be a time block, you know what we can do? They've made a new thing in Session Lab. We don't need to use those. We can use these little Post-it note looking things that don't have times associated with.
Post-it notes.
Yes, so this is your, see that friendly Post-it note color? Okay, so you want.
I could just think of this as Post-it notes on a digital screen.
Yes. So they really are, because as you put these little things in here, and then you can make them different colors based on what you do, and then you can drag them. You can drag activities to different parts. So it really is like Post-it notes, and you can actually go ahead and be like, okay, you know, this whole section. So say this shift perspective thing, you might end up with a bunch of activities in here. So say you end up with a bunch of activities, and one of them's like, you can see how this is building out on the left-hand side of like, how long are these different activities? Oh, we want to have like another thing here. Then as these get named, and then you may decide like, you know what, I don't want that at all. So it goes over there on your side. So this is just like the Post-it note energy of like, here's my little bucket of the 10 activities I want to do. And then as you reality check, how long are they going to take? Or even as the session's running live, one of your activities might have gone a lot later. So then you're like, okay, well, this one's out of here now. And so what's great about it is, especially if you're working with co-facilitators, you can be keeping your time the whole time this is going on. And you also have a record automatically of what you thought you were going to do, and then what actually ended up happening.
Oh, that's nice.
So back.
And also, so I've got a tech host that's going to be helping me on this. Can I share? They're probably not in Session Lab. Can I share this with them so they can be keeping track?
So let's share this with you. What is your? Why don't I have your email in here?
Alex at thethirdlayer.com.
You might get emails from the internet if this is. There we go. So I'm going to invite you to that. So you can get that and see, now you're an editor. You can share that with anyone else on your team. You can also share just a visitor link. So we could actually grab this link right now and share it with the people in this meeting, and then they can be following along. And so this is really nice. We use this a lot with clients. so that we have people who are the actual editors of things, and then other people who just want to be seeing the progress. So when we work with building out a complex program, honestly, it's once people see it starting to take form here, they believe that it's going to happen. They understand the timing. They see that things take longer than they thought. They understand their role. So like, say you have like your tech person or an MC or somebody else, you might have a block in here that's like their, this is them introducing somebody, and you make that a different color. So you can make that, you can add a category and make this be your like intro by MC, whatever. You can make things be those colors, and they can look. It's really helpful if you have other people coming in as guest speakers or whatever, they can see their color. But all right, let's get back to your through line. So
do you send this
go ahead.
Do you send this to clients before you do a workshop?
No, not usually, because it's a level of detail that a client doesn't usually need. If it's just a program, like they've hired us to do a 2-hour program, like what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
That's not it's more like when we're partnering with, we're building out a conference or something like that. So we're working with a leadership team and guest speakers, and it's like a 2-day event, and like that helps us in our co-design meetings.
Got it. So like the behind the scenes people.
Yeah, the behind the scenes people. Sometimes, I'll share it with other collaborators, right? Who say, wait, how could you show me your behind the scenes, and then I have that choice to share it. So let's get back. So whenever we're designing, before we get into any of like, what's your favorite activity you totally want to do? We start with the end in mind, right? So what's the goal? This session goes really, really well. How are you going to know? Like, tell me more about your goal for this session.
So I've seen the responses from people. I asked people to describe why they want to take this class and what their goals are.
Great.
And people are, sorry?
Yeah, great. Yes.
And so people are saying that, they're feeling really overwhelmed. They've been attacked. They're just, they're burnt out, they're exhausted. And so, although I've worked in trauma, my goals, I am not a therapist. I don't work on the trauma side, but I work on the adding enjoyment side. And so I want them to have, we're going to do a bunch of different exercises. So I want them to walk away with at least 3 to 5 tools about how to make sure that when they're kind of pulled down by the sludge monster, that they've got some tools that they can go back to. And then in all my sessions, I do what I call a creativity notebook. And so I have them start a notebook where they can put in the exercises. So I want them to have at least 3 to 5 pages of exercises and tools and super personalized that they can use.
Okay. So they're actually going to start a notebook on your call. Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what I love about that is when we teach about how to do effective design, we talk a lot about doing the work on the call. So these are those 5 steps that I laid out, but your setting actions and like integrating is part of the experience. Instead of just, if you just did a program where you're like, here's 5 great exercises, wasn't that fun? And then you leave them off here, the chances of them implementing that are very low, right? So you're already thinking to take responsibility for, let's make sure they do that work in the room.
Exactly.
So that means somewhere in here, is that maybe it's an activity where they're going to create a notebook. Like, do you want to tell me a little bit about what is that? What's their action? So create a notebook.
Yeah, so I have them bring a blank notebook to the class, and unless they have mobility issues, it needs to be handwritten because and now you'll start to see why I'm so afraid of doing digital things. But, there's all those exercises that you, when you handwrite, you integrate much better. And so I have them bring the notebook, and then I have them kind of draw, some of them are like, 4-part graphs or, ladders or whatever. And so I have them kind of draw stuff out in their notebook as we go. And then so the exercises are really long because we'll kind of start it and then they'll have a few minutes to do stuff. And then we'll kind of come back.
Okay, great.
And I'm saying kind of because so what happens is, I've been doing this for 15 years and I've done this dozens and dozens of times. I think one time ever, I've actually stayed with the structure that I gave the workshop. I always pivot to something else because people will always find something and everybody will be like, oh yeah, that.
Great.
And so we'll always pivot.
Great. So that's fantastic. So for you, because you keep changing what's in the middle, then the part we're going to fix in time is making sure that you have a good launch and making sure you have a good landing. And then what you do in the middle, you know that you're going to swap stuff out and you're going to be responsive to the group. How this translates to other people's programs are like, this is like having a guest speaker. You don't know what they're going to do. So if you're in charge of designing a program, like you're like, hey, we have a 75-minute weekly webinar or whatever. You as the organizer, make sure you control this. You make sure you have good connection. You have their participants identify with the topic, relate to the topic. What do they know about it? You ask them a poll, you do some questions, you warm up the audience. Then you have this guest speaker that you have no idea what it's going to do. And they might be like Alex and they might not be able to tell you. And then you give them a chunk of real estate and then you take back the mic and you say, great, what did you learn from the speaker? What's important about what they said? Talk in small groups, whatever you can do. What actions are you going to take? So this framework really helps for anybody who's trying to deal with that they don't know what the presenter is going to do. In your case, Alex, you are both people. you are your
my own guest
presenter
speaker
who doesn't know what you're going to do. So, all right. So it sounds like I want to ask you just a little bit more about your end goal. So they're going to leave this, if you narrowed it down, they're going to leave with one tool. Each person will leave with one tool and an understanding of how to use it.
At least 3.
Okay. What's important to you about that they each have, that they'll leave with at least 3?
So I'm dividing it into 3 different hours, 3 different sections. And what are those sections? Okay, so hour number 1 is how has the pandemic affected your journalism and your personal life as well as your journalist life.
Okay.
And then hour number 2, we're going to work on inner critic and imposter syndrome work.
Okay.
And that's one exercise that's an hour long.
Okay.
And that's actually, so I teach that for Write Like a Honey Badger, and I usually do it in 3 hours. So I'm going to have to squish it into 1 hour. So I could use advice on that. And then, because sometimes I tend to go over. And then hour number 3 is then to identify the tools that works for each of them.
Okay, great. So that's actually your sort of integration time.
Yeah, we'll be doing kind of a little integration in each hour, but yeah, hour number 3 will probably be like half integration.
Great. Yeah, so you're already building that in, and that's why when we do it this way, we say this is iterative, right? So if you just have a 1 hour call, you're doing it pretty linearly, and people are like, here's your piece of new information, here's your time to integrate it. But what you're doing is like 3 times around this cycle, and then maybe one ultimate integration at the end. So that's something for you to decide, right? But so within those, so I just made them into 3 parts here because you said that there were 3 parts and that each one. So part 1, and so there'll be some type of activity, and then, so I don't know where the create notebook's going to go in this grand scheme of things. But
so that would probably go in earlier before we start the stuff, because I have people do like a kind of like a table of contents, and so that'll probably go, and that's probably 10 minutes at the beginning.
Okay, great. And I'll put it inside of a block because there may be.
Ooh, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. Do you know what I just realized? I should have people do this before. I'm going to send an email a week before the session. I should have people do that then, because then we don't have to take the 10 minutes.
Great. All right. So then let's go ahead and create like a pre-session block for you, and it won't affect your time. I'll fix the time on this so that it's starting at 10, and we'll make it
And
have,
that's going to be,
yeah, we'll make it have no time, but this can be like your little pre-session sort of email, create notebook, right?
Create notebook. Oh, and then I could have, I'm going to have 3 things in the email. Can we add the other 2 things now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have them do 10 true statements about their creativity.
Okay.
And then the mathematics of joy exercise, which I really wish I would have named it a much better name. It's a really ridiculous name for an exercise, but yes, the mathematics of joy exercise. Okay.
You could rename this. Great. Okay.
I could.
So do you want just ideas from me too? Or like when you said that made me think, if you did this 10 true statements about my creativity, and I don't know what the other exercise is, if you did this as a form so that people would submit answers, then you could include somewhere when it makes sense in your run of show, like displaying the pattern from those answers, or pulling out individual answers, or somehow weave that pre-work into the program flow.
What do you mean? So yeah, so I have them, okay, so I have them do that. And I've been doing this for years. I'll have them do 10 true statements. And then I want them to be able to share it. I don't want them, I always tell people nobody has to share anything, so they can verbally share it, you know, as we begin. Yeah, that you're prepared to share it, exactly. If you want.
Great. So this could be, so in this first part of like them connecting with each other, perhaps you have them somehow share those statements, right? So that could be the premise of that.
Yeah, that's great. So like it's going to be over Zoom, so maybe in the chat or something.
Yeah. So how many people are you expecting in this event?
12.
Okay. Yeah. So 12 people. Do you have capacity to make breakout rooms, or is everything in the main session? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just a sort of scaffolding question. Like, people are coming onto the call, greeting them. You might want to do something at the beginning that is like some type of low stakes interaction thing. Like, you know, how many of you relate, you know, have been on this, worked with me before, or have, I don't know, or feeling this, I don't know, some kind of statements, some type of activity where they are at least looking at each other, have their cameras on, like like 2 of me, or just sort of hand waving poll. It's a small group, right? So you could do some kind of like, as you're introducing what you're doing, some type of plenary connection activity.
I'll probably do the sense ratings. That's and I think, is that what you're talking about, this thing, the finger waving, the sense? Were you on the call when I did the sense ratings, where I have people like say the number of what they think of food and smells and sounds and feelings? Have you ever been on that one?
No, but that sounds, if you call it a sense rating.
Sense ratings.
Okay, so that's in the plenary?
Yeah.
Everyone, okay.
It depends. What's the plenary?
I mean, the plenary, meaning everyone in the main session, not in breakout.
Oh, got it. Okay. So plenary is like the with everybody. Got it.
We can call it main session.
Okay.
Great. So you would
I like
do
plenary.
That? Yeah.
Yeah, that's like maybe 8 minutes.
Okay. And then maybe there's Yeah, so that's something that could be done that kind of sound, you know how this works, right? It helps people feel like what they say matters and a chance for people to participate. I usually like to get people into, I'm a big fan of small groups and especially like it reminded me when you said this statements about my creativity that you're prepared to share. Sometimes that's nicer to do in a little bit smaller group. Imagine that, because it's just send them into small groups, have them share about that, and then maybe they could come back. You could put a message in chat that's like, come back if there's ready to share a theme from your group or something from your group, if you want to then take shares out.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, because it's some pretty deep shit. So I think being in groups of maybe 3 or 4 or even 3 would be good. And then they can, and then they can get deeper in those small groups, but then in the bigger group. I like that.
Yeah. So this could be sort of groups of 3 to 4. How much time do you think?
10 minutes.
Yep, and then you could put a little chat prompt over here. Like we put all of our chat prompts in this ahead of time, so that all you have to do is copy and paste this and say, small group discussion, whatever it says here.
Oh, those are the asterisks. So that's how you kind of tell yourself that that's going to go into chat.
Yeah, exactly. So that when it goes into chat, you can see it as different than just normal chat stuff. Or sometimes now that this doesn't show up on all systems, but you can put emojis or whatever as well, but sometimes that doesn't show up on PCs. So I use the asterisk show up on anybody. So if you put, share, what I like about your thing is the 10 true statements about my creativity is even if someone didn't do the homework, they could, do that.
Yeah.
You could also do an activity. You could do the true of me activity, like something that's true. And since your statement is so provocative of it, like something that's true about your creativity and, could to kind of warm up people sharing it, you could do that in the plenary and then say, great, looks like there's a lot of people that are relating to this. Now we're going to send you to small groups to talk more deeply about what do you think? What does it tell you that we saw so many people reveal themselves when they said X? And that could be a way to warm up people to not just be thinking about themselves, but be thinking about the bigger concept about how we relate to our creativity.
Yeah.
So it gets people out of just thinking about themselves and thinking about like, well, I just said that. So if you like that idea, you could do something like that. And and this
throw it in, man.
Somebody else in Session Lab too, because instead of I'm just typing the names of these, but you can also search. There's a whole library of activities that are already loaded into Session Lab. And I happen to have written up True of Me. So if you search it, and I'm pretty sure I made it a public activity. So there it is. And now you could just drag there and be like, look at that, there it is. And then if you want to read about it, you can pop this open and then you can see all this, instructions, adaptations.
Oh my God, that is, yes, Nancy just said what? That is so cool. That is so cool. So can I take like the sense ratings or the mathematics of joy, and can I just write that up? And then if anybody wants to use it, they can use it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you could go. So let's see if I know how to do this. I remember how to do this. Let's see. I'm just going to click around a little bit and we're going to figure this out. So here's the library. So those of you watching along, you can see I have my own private library, but there's like the IAF, International Association of Facilitators, all these activities from them. So any of those, you can just look at it in the same level of detail. It's already written up. All the Tiagi activities, game storming, liberating structures, a whole bunch of these things are already loaded into here. So if you know of these activities, and then you can also search by topic, right? So I'm like, oh, I want activities that have to do with trust. And you can filter, and in this case, there's 110 things that have to do with trust. That's a big topic.
Oh my God.
So then you can get ideas of like, oh yeah, I've heard of appreciative interviews. How does that work? You know, and then you can just add it. You can be like, I want to do that in my session. So then you can go and, I mean, I have a million workshops in here. So somewhere there's the one we're just working on right now, Alex. What is it called? What did we call it? Journalist, creativity.
Creativity, mental health, creativity, mental health. Ooh,
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So then you would select that, and there are folders. It's possible in Session Lab to not have a giant list. Now you can add that to your Session Lab. You also can, so that's what I just showed you. You can add it, but then you could also share the same way that we shared. Like you can also share just that method. So if you want to share that to someone else.
And so you could share it on like Twitter, LinkedIn, or.
Sure, yeah, you could grab any of these and then you hit share. If people have made it public, then that's a public link. So if I just put that in there, it'll open up and it'll show that activity just as its own link. So sometimes I'll do that if I'm leading a session and it's to facilitators and they're like, hey, what's that activity? I can share that link in chat. So then they immediately have that. But what you asked about directly was, can you write your own resource? So yeah, there you go. So you can create a personal resource and then you can do this, write it yourself, your 5 senses or whatever. And then I often add tags here. This is where, like, if this is about trust or whatever, you can add hashtags. And that way, when I'm searching my own library, this is super helpful. So if I was running a session and I'm like, teach a session about empathy, I'm like, oh gosh, what did I use to teach empathy? I have my own library and I've tagged things to be like, what did I already do to teach about empathy? So that's really helpful.
This is amazing. My assistant and I are trying to do this in Google spreadsheets right now, and it's the biggest mess I've ever seen in human history. I've got 120 exercises and we've got tags and everything, but in Google spreadsheets, it's just an absolute mess.
Yes.
Can I add my assistant to my Session Lab account, or could we? I just want to.
You can get a team account so that you can have your own little private library between the two of you, and they have like a rate for that. Or obviously you could just both log into the same account. That might mess up, you know, if you're trying to work real time in the same thing. So that's just a strategy decision when you look at the pricing. Everything I'm showing you so far in Session Lab is totally free. Anyone who's watching can do this. So see how now this little appreciative interviews thing that we pulled out the library, now it's sitting over here in what I call this the dashboard, right? Because it's not really your session design, it's just where all the scraps of post-it notes and whatnot end up over there. And then you could just drag, if you wanted to use it in your session, you would just drag it in. All right, let's see. Is it true that you only have 4 minutes left of our little time together today? Is that true?
Oh, okay. Let's see how easy it is going to be to get my rescue dog into the car. All right, let's do 8.5 more minutes.
Okay. So in the 8.5 minutes, what's going to be, let's see. So we've done some functionality. Yeah, what's going to be most helpful to you in the next 7-8 minutes that we have?
And also if people have questions, type it into chat. Yeah, the ability to pivot is really helpful. And what else? What's your little, can I see your little thing of 5 again?
Oh yeah. I mean, this thing?
Yeah. the thing of 5. What do you call this other than the thing of 5?
Transformational design framework.
Your transformational
Very
design
official.
framework.
Yes.
Okay, connect, set goals, shift perspective, integrate, set actions. How about set actions? It's the last couple minutes. Should we talk about setting actions, actions? Yeah,
and where that fits into things. So the general idea here is you've given shift perspective is just anything that makes people think differently. So it's an activity, It could be a video, it could be a keynote speaker, but the idea is why bother in engaging with something unless it's going to change your perspective on something. And then integrate, this is like your takeaways, like, oh, okay, what am I taking away? What seems meaningful to me? What do I think about this? What do I relate to? What do I disagree with? You're integrating into your own experience. And I have that as distinct from setting actions, because setting actions is really boiling it down to, now that I've had this whole experience and I've thought about it, how am I going to take this out in the world? So what am I going to do differently? And I really put some time, I think you're a coach too, so I like to put some time in there to really coach people about what does it mean to set actions. And I encourage people to, like, what's one action that you can take in the next hour? Like ideally, like something so tangible and so specific that they can take that action in the next hour. One email you're going to send, one question you're going to ask, one request you're going to make. Not like, I'm going to start journaling every day, you know, like, no, like, okay, you've identified. I mean, that's kind of why I was leaning on you a little bit about, oh, you want to have 3 to 5 tools. Well, I would, if you're going to narrow this down to an action item, then probably you're going to spend some time in this action time of having them identify what's one tool you want to try out, and then what's the first step of trying out that tool.
How long would you set aside for that? Out of 3 hours, how long would you, how much time would you set aside?
There's all accordions, right? Depending on the
Yeah.
nature of your presentation. So if this was a keynote, you know, this might be a relatively small piece. If this was it sounds like you're really doing a lot of integration and you're really wanting them to do it. So I think having some time where you have a little bit of like coaching around what is an effective action step, because I'm guessing, you know, that you have things to say about that from the science of how do people develop habits? How do people actually change? So you probably could have a little bit of time, like where you're center stage talking about that. I mean, you could build out this depending on, this might be the most important part of your workshop to somebody. You could crowd people, like when you've made it, when you've integrated a new habit that's reduced your stress or increased your creativity, what was the first step that you took? This could be a whole section, right?
And this is kind of my entire methodology basically is turning thoughts into action steps. So this is the whole, and that's why I do so much integration.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how long the session would be. Like it's kind of in a way it's 3 hours long to coming up with this, but in a way it's, you know, is it just kind of 5 minutes? Like we've been doing this for 3 hours. You have 5 pages of exercise. And I call it the low hanging fruit, or your 0.5, you know, everything's on the ladder from 0 to 10. Like what's the 0.5 step you could take? So in a way that's, I mean, that's probably not even, maybe 10 minutes, maybe like 8 minutes.
So it's all about the mechanism of how you do that. So you could be having people like pre-identify possible action steps that they're auditioning all the way through. So like if you were going to integrate this, what would you do? So you're doing a mini, like if you were going to integrate this, what would be the first, you know, if you were going to enact this tool, what would be the first step? What would be the first step? And then they're doing a little harvesting at this part where they look through those and they decide of those. This right here, you could send them into small groups to talk about what is their next action step. You could have them play magical gifts where they share what their action step is and someone gives them a magical gift that helps them enact it, and then have them, you know, land what are they actually going to do. Like
I actually might have them do one. I might give them like a 5, because it'd be nice to have breaks. I might give them a 5-minute break and say you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, take a 5-minute break and then actually enact it.
Yes.
3 hours. So, you know.
Right. That's fantastic, right? Have them do it and then have some type of report back. And maybe their conversation with each other is like, how was that? Maybe they do small groups on how was that. And this big action, you could have them leave their camera, not take a break, have them leave the cameras on, play the music, have a countdown timer that's like, all right, here's the timer counting down, like take your action.
Oh my God, I love that. 5 minutes, like that's all you have to do.
Yeah, let's do it. And let's do it together, right?
Yeah,
totally. Talk about the value of that. And then they could talk about that, which may lead them to thinking about like, who is their accountability partner? What's going to make it work for them? they could learn something just out of that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and then, what I could do is I could have one of the exercises is like what works and what doesn't work. And then so I can have them do that exercise afterwards.
Ooh, okay. So then there's like,
they had, and like, what are the 5 feelings that come up? When they took that action step, what are the 5 feelings that came up? What, what can they envision would work, would not work? And then we can actually do that exercise. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like a 4-week class. It's just squished into 3 hours. And so I could still have them do this exercise.
Yep. So now you're like integrating the action step, and almost this whole thing is actually becoming a piece of the content. So, this framework is to help you just know that start with connection, end with action, but the more you're weaving in integration and little action steps along the way, and this sort of radical, like, let's do an action right now. Okay, how was that? And processing the better. So you're conceptually so aligned already. And I just want to point out, like, even with this very, very rough framework, if we just look at timing, I mean, this is not at all built out, right? But if there's, I don't know if all these things, if we've been very loyal, we've got some extra 10 minutes here and there. But you see how, we've got, there's
the inner critic is like an hour.
Okay, so if we make the inner critic part, where is that one? Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, imposter syndrome. Yeah, an hour.
Yeah, so if we build that out to an hour, here it goes. And of course, you'd break this up into like, what are you actually doing in this big old block here, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's some other stuff that's just sort of random extraneous things that came up, but somehow they're setting their goal. This is like a blank box. This is a blank box out here. I mean, it may have value, but we don't know what it is yet. Or there's, you've got 10 minutes here. So even if we put this blank box in here, and this is not what it will actually look like, but look how you're now at 3 hours. So this is also the reality of, right now you've got a half an hour for connection. We didn't even talk about how you're making goal setting, but maybe that's 10 minutes, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's integrated into the connection. You've got, well, right now it's like 20 minutes for action steps, but it'll be something like that, right? If you're ramping in and out of a big call, you've got, maybe you've got an hour and a half that's actual content. You've got 20 minutes coming in. You may even want 30 minutes that actually really is that, and then you want a break or 2 in there. So this process is also, the way this is better than Post-it notes is that like you can really look at, okay, how long is this really going to take? So.
No, this is really helpful because I tend to generally, I pivot, but it's really exhausting on me to pivot so much. Because then I kind of have to, make everything up on the fly. So it'd be nice. It was kind of fun to do this now because I got to make everything up on the fly now. But then I have 10 days to sit and think about how I can do this. And I don't have to pivot. I mean, this is what I said the class was, and so this is what the class is going to be. And
so if you commit, the challenge as a facilitator is always to commit to your ending. So get your bottom line to, like, maybe you end up pulling out something, but what piece of your ending is non-negotiable? What piece of integration and action step is non-negotiable? So then your hard line that you're aiming for. And then you're going to start, what you're starting with. And then, you can swap things out in the middle, but really the sort of integrity piece is that commitment to sticking the landing, having the landing that people are really leaving with, which it sounds like you've got. So I think you have to go pick up your dog soon. What would you say, what are your, you did a little bit of this, but if you were to sort of zoom out a bit from this process and this 45, 50 minutes we spent together, what are your biggest takeaways?
That it doesn't have to kill the magic, that the organization doesn't have to kill the magic, that this is, sticking on the topic is going to be a good thing, really. And And yeah, I can do a lot of this in that pre-email, which is great. And then and I tend to sometimes go over in my workshops. And so this is a way where I actually don't have to go over.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was checking the live stream. See, like, are people chatting questions? I don't know if I enabled it. Okay, so the structure does not need to kill the magic. The structure supports the magic. It's the stage upon which the magic happens. The costume changes can happen, within on the magical stage. The structure supports it.
Yeah.
And so, Alex, with your commitment to actions, what is one action that you're going to take in the next hour to 24 hours as a result of this conversation, or this experience?
Oh, golly. I'm going to build out what you sent me. And then I'm going to start creating that email so that we get as much done possible so that we can stick to that schedule in 3 hours. And I'm going to make a commitment to sticking to the schedule, and I'm going to try not pivoting.
Not pivoting. What do you mean by not pivoting?
I'm making a commitment to do the schedule that we created and not pivot in the meeting, but I'm going to send out an email. I'm going to start drafting an email that will make sure that they know the structure as well. And they get their creativity notebook started, and they even fill out some of the pages, and so we could just jump right in.
Okay.
So they set up the structure.
Can I just speak to pivoting? I am 100% in favor of pivoting. I'm just not like, your activities, you're responding to your group, you only have 12 people, like pulling out a whole activity, taking one of those 3 things, be like, you know what, we're not doing this, or we're shortening this, or this is turning into a mini lecturette, but we're going to do a different activity. That kind of pivoting is your strength and like the preciousness that you bring. So I hope that is not what you're committing to, like remove that. Just, so what, I guess, now I'm concerned. What do you mean by you're not going to pivot?
Okay, so maybe I will pivot. I'm going to, I know something very specific. I will put 3 of the exercises that I want to use in the session lab.
Great.
And I can pivot, but within those 3, and then I could just whammo, pull them up, and then transfer them in right away.
Right. This seems like a bigger conversation about like, what do you mean by pivot? What do you want to be pivoting? What do you not want to be pivoting? Because
we should do this again. How do you pivot in session lab?
Yes, because
Bye, Brian.
Because the whole point of this having a structured design is where you are. So you absolutely can pivot in the sense that you're like, you know what, this connection activity, I don't think they want to go into small groups. Instead, I'm going to have them do this. Oh, I like this true of me idea, but like it seems kind of stilted for this group. I'm going to have them just talk to each other. Like you can pivot, but like I'm swapping out to achieve the goal. Like I know where I am. I'm just wanting them to connect to each other and feel more comfortable with this topic. Great. Yeah. So however you want to do that, you have a draft of how you think you're going to do it and how much time you think it's going to take. You've put the thought into ahead of time in service of being able to be most responsive to the group.
Yeah.
So this is all about making structure be your friend and not at all constrain you. That way, like I said, it's like an accordion. So if you spend a lot more time on goal setting, because that's actually that's what the group really needs. Like why start into content when they're not clean and clear on what's most important, or maybe emotions have come up during that, and you make a decision as a facilitator, like this is actually really important, this conversation right here.
Yeah.
And you can wholesale like take out an hour of content in one swipe and be like, so that's the pivoting that you keep. And then also you also know, like, you know what, for them to I want to make sure that they leave no matter what happens. No matter what happens, I'm going to give them time in small groups, or I'm going to give them time to write so they can integrate what's important to them. And then, I have to begin that process 15 minutes before the end because this part is not negotiable.
Yeah. I think that's a good takeaway for me is people often cry in these sessions. They get pretty intense. And so I want to make sure, and I do often go over because of that. So I'd like to have the last half hour. Okay, maybe, how about that? I've got 2.5 hours to pivot, and then the last 30 minutes is somewhat not set in stone, but it's kind of like a aerobics class. And then we have we kind of have, the last 10 minutes of a aerobics class. You kind of have to like mellow out 10 minutes.
I love that.
And I hate sending people off when they're in this like, oh my God. And so I want to have at least 20 to 30 minutes at the end, and then let people go on time, which never happens. So yeah, okay, that's my main commitment. And also getting my dog to an appointment in 32 minutes is my other main commitment. Let's talk about this again. Let's do this again. This is amazing. This is awesome. Oh my God, my brain feels so organized right now. I will talk to you